Hey, this is Ralph, and in the next few videos, I want to play around with styling forms, web forms, in a pleasing way. Now, I've got a couple forms here as examples. This is one for applying to be over at Lyft. And in both of my examples, there's some good stuff and bad stuff. I like the grouping on this, but this particular form takes this horizontal display, which is kind of weird and generally not recommended. It's better to be in a column going down. Now they do something nice. They are using kind of placeholder text, but when I click on the field, that placeholder text kind of moves up and gets out of the way, and it's still visible. So a decent looking form, but I think we can learn from it and improve on it. Let's look at this form too. This is to apply to the Survivor TV show. Now, I like that this is a little bit more one column. Some fields are two columns, which kind of makes sense. Home phone, cell phone, I'm cool with that. City, state, and zip are sharing the same row. That actually looks pretty nice. However, they're breaking a rule where they're using a placeholder text that actually gets replaced. So as soon as someone puts in some information there, you don't have that placeholder to kind of draw your eye to what that piece of information is. So as good as that form looks, it's still could be improved if the placeholder text or labels were still visible. Because as you're filling this out, you want to make sure that you got the right things covered. Did you get your home phone in the right box, cell phone in the right box, and stuff like that. Now, this may seem pretty obvious to you. So, it's not too complicated, but it's still, for usability practices, it is kind of nice to have that information available. Speaking of usability, I am referencing this article over here from Nielsen Norman Group. Top 10 recommendations, and obviously let's just jump down to the top 10. Keep it short. Short forms are more likely to get filled out. That definitely makes sense. Visually group related labels and fields. That's good. Shipping information, billing information, definitely those are grouped. Payment information, you'd group those together. And of course, we could use field set to do that grouping. That certainly would work. Present fields in a single column layout. Not only is this good for usability, you can just kind of move through that list, but it also makes it easier to make that form responsive, because if you're going to go to a mobile or phone layout, you're probably going to have single column anyway. So then there's little to no difference in how you style that form for your mobile users. Logical sequencing, that makes sense. Obviously, if you're going to ask for first name and last name, do first name and last name. First name, last name emails a pretty logical sequence, but obviously you wouldn't want to do something like first name, last name, and then mailing address, and then email address, and then city, state, and zip. It's just, yeah. So use a logical sequence. Avoid placeholder text, and I'm okay if you use some placeholder text, but don't let that placeholder text be the substitute for a clear label. Definitely for accessibility issues, those labels are going to be important. Match fields to the type and size of the input. Yeah, I've been annoyed by that a number of times where maybe they want you to type in a long password, or they want to type in a city, or they want to type in some piece of text information, but they give you a tiny little text box to do so. So as soon as you start typing, you can no longer see the beginning part of what you typed. Yeah, so make sure that the user has enough information to see reasonably what they're typing into the box. Distinguish optional and required fields. Yeah, do something so it's clear what fields are optional and what are required. This happened to me just yesterday. I can't remember the form I was filling out, but yeah, I had to go back a couple of times because I skipped over some fields. It turned out they were required, even though they didn't grab my attention starting off. Explain any input or formatting requirements. Yeah. So placeholders, obviously, if someone's putting in a phone number, do they need to have the area code in there and stuff? There's ways you can do that. The example they're getting is with password. So yeah, we want to make sure we can do that kind of stuff. Avoid reset and clear buttons. Yeah, you shouldn't do those on forms anymore. It's just too easy for somebody to accidentally click a reset button when they meant to hit a submit button. Clears out the form. How frustrating. You want your visitor to be doing something, maybe buying a product, and you just annoyed them right away. Provide highly visible and specific error messages. Great. And that can be done with some JavaScript, or even with the HTML5 form attributes, or a combination of the two. So definitely want to play around with that. So let's get to work. And in order to really start what we're going to be doing here, and there's going to be several videos doing several things using this as inspiration. In fact, let me go ahead and grab a screen capture of this so I have a visual of it without having to keep going back to the web page. Open that in my image editor. And let's jump over to the CBS Survivor Show, and we'll go ahead and copy that too. And open that in a separate image editor. Nice, got those handy. Oh, by the way, I like this too. If you do have a big form, break it up into chunks, and you can kind of walk the user through that process so they know how deep into the whole form process they are. By the way, I'm not going to apply to be on Survivor, but I do enjoy the show, so if you apply, let me know so we can keep an eye out for you. Okay, so let's get to work on our forms.